tonight. You said, and I'm quoting you, where procreation is in principle impossible, marriage is irrelevant. You went on to say it was irrelevant and not needed. What about marriage between people who are well beyond their childbearing age? Irrelevant, not needed?
No, it's simply a misunderstanding. The word in principle means relating to the definition of, not relating to particular circumstances. So if an apple has a worm in it, the worm is not part of the definition of the apple. It doesn't change what the apple is in principle. So the fact...
It retains its appleness.
It retains... it retains... To act as if concepts are laughable means that you want to be irrational. Human beings reason...
You said it was irrelevant and not needed.
Human beings reason by means of concepts and definition. We also make laws by means of definitions. And if you don't know how to operate with respect for those definitions, you can't make the law. An individual who is impotent or another who is infertile does not change the definition of marriage in principle. Because between a man and a woman, in principle, procreation is always possible. And it is that possibility which gave rise to the institution of marriage in the first place. As a matter of law,
it's still
as a matter of law
possible
and
in principle.
But when it is impossible, as between two males or two females, you're talking about something that's not just incidentally impossible, it's impossible in principle. And that means that if you say that that's a marriage, you are saying marriage can be understood in principle apart from procreation. You have changed its definition in such a way as, in fact, to destroy the necessity for the institution. Since the only reason it has existed in human societies and civilizations was to regulate, from a social point of view, the obligations and responsibilities attendant upon procreation. So when you start playing games in this way, you are actually acting as if the institution has no basis independent of your own arbitrary whim. And if you don't mind my saying so, that's what we just heard. We heard something that wasn't based on reasoning. It wasn't based on logic. It was based on vague feelings and respect.
It was based on your quote.
No, I don't mean
last
that.
Thursday night.
I'm not talking about me. I am talking about what Senator Obama just went through in terms of explaining his position. My position is based upon an effort, as conscientiously as I can, to reason through the challenge that we face when dealing with the most important fundamental institution of our social life and civilization. We can't afford, for instance, in civil unions.
We've got to move on.
But let me... This position is illogical. Now 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 this...
Can I do that?
Go right ahead.
Because it's actually very simple. I have over here two females, because I didn't talk about adoption. Those two females are intent on having, quote, having a child, which they cannot have, obviously, unless you involve a male. The procedures that are used now by many lesbian couples are procedures that mask the identity of the father, so it will not be known. Okay? So it will not and cannot be known who is the father of that child. Now,
isn't that true in many adoptions?
No, excuse me. I just said that a conscious, willful effort was made so that you could not know who was the biological father. Once you have made that effort, you produce a child who cannot know who its father is. Cannot know that. Now, if you don't know and have no way of ascertaining who your father is, then you can't know who your sisters and brothers are either. And if you can't know who your sisters and brothers are, there is no way you could avoid having sexual relations with them. And so logically speaking, excuse me, I know that that Senator Obama sometimes has a hard time getting from A to B, but from A to B is a simple, logical step, which I believe most people in the state of Illinois have the common sense to see. In order to make an informed judgment, you must have the knowledge needed to avoid the consequence. And in that particular case, the knowledge is not available.
Quick response,
it is
Mr.
quite
Obama.
logical.